Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, the presumed massacre of 43 students who went missing in a southern Mexican town in September has stirred pain, anger, and shame as well in a country where abductions and torture and murder are unfortunately all too familiar to millions of citizens. Now, investigators have accused the mayor of Iguala in Guerrero state, where the apparent kidnappings happened, and his wife of ordering the seizure of students by local police. Now, they suspect the police then handed the students over to drug gangs. Now, the discovery of mass graves in the area has fanned fears of a worst-case scenario. Now, my guest today is Juan Manuel Gomez Robledo. Welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
You have a long title, but you have perhaps your mission is a little simpler. You are the Deputy Foreign Minister for Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights. It is the second part of your title that I want to concentrate on today, the human rights part. You have been very closely involved in following the investigation of these students and keeping everyone else informed of where we are. Where are we? Because as you notice, we still say they're missing students. It has not been confirmed that any of those bodies found are in fact those students.
They are missing and they will remain so until we know exactly the identity of the remnants that were just sent to one specialized laboratory in Austria.
In Austria?
In Austria, which is the most specialized one on this field. Before we know that, we need to consider them as missing, as a case of enforced disappearance, and they are still being, we are trying to locate them as we, in parallel, do the forensic investigation.
So still hopes that perhaps some of them are still alive, even though as time passes, perhaps less and less.
Exactly. Perhaps slimmer hope than in the first few days, of course, but we still have some hope. And our duty is to continue to look for them.
Your president, Enrique Peña Nieto, he came to power pledging to crack down on these organized crime networks. He says that Mexico has been safer under his watch. There's a real sense, though, of moral outrage. We've seen it in the streets of Mexico. Do you feel that this case, something has fundamentally changed, that this was sort of the so-called straw that broke the camel's back?
It has proved, at least, that both the Mexican society and the government have a deeper sense of the importance of protecting human rights. I think you would not have seen such a reaction only a few years ago. It goes hand in hand with the openness of the country, with the fact that we are by far the most open country to international scrutiny on human rights, where we have been working with a number of international mechanisms to upgrade our standards, and we are perhaps in a better condition than only a few years ago to deal with the issue.
Let me ask you about a few years ago, obviously before the current president in power. From 2006 to 2005 to 2012, Mexico's State Human Rights Commission found evidence, basically, of government involvement in 64 forced disappearances. Government involvement. We're not talking about the drug gangs. That's only 2 years ago. Have you seen any evidence of that changing, of the complicity between politicians and the gangs?
I would say that at the federal level, of course, there's been a great deal of change. The government is trying to protect human rights according to international standards. Let me give you an example. Only last June, we changed the rule according to which the military would be tried only by their tribunals. Now, the military, if they are involved in human rights violations, have to be tried by civilian courts. That is a tremendous change.
And yet, I just want to cite, not to throw these statistics at you, but they are important. In Guerrero state, where these apparent kidnappings happened, not a single prosecution for forced disappearance or torture has ever gone to trial. There's an impunity in 98% of cases. Why is that?
Guerrero is a state where the social fabric has been very much hit by the drug cartels. Guerrero is a place where most of the heroin that is sent to Chicago is produced. Guerrero is a place where 70% of its inhabitants live under the level of poverty. Guerrero is a state with a tradition of social unrest since the 70s. And Guerrero is a state where the institutional strengths have been very much damaged.
So you're saying it's a bit of an exception within Mexico,
I would say that it's one of the few states in which this pattern repeats itself continuously. Most of the cases that we have in the inter-American system of human rights belong to the same 5 or 6 states. Whereas in other places where we had a very difficult situation, like in Nuevo León, like in Baja California, or like in Chihuahua, have improved over the last few years.
Okay, but there's still, to bring this onto the federal level, there have only been, according to the statistics I've seen, 4 convictions ever at the federal level for torture, and I think 6 convictions ever in history of Mexico for forced disappearances. Doesn't it get back to that basic question of sort of dysfunctionality in the criminal justice system?
Oh, certainly, certainly. The criminal justice system is perhaps the most challenging issue that we have to tackle.
Where do you start with it?
And this is why there's been a tremendous reform of the criminal justice system. We are in transition to go from the old model of the inquisitorial system to the oral and adversarial one.
But how do you do it? Even if you have the best of intentions, the drug cartels are a lot richer, more money, and a lot more powerful, than the politicians.
By investing in the police. Think that President Calderon, when he took office, had only 6,000 policemen at his disposal of the federal police. When he left government, he had 40,000. Now, with the help of countries like France, we have added 5,000 more with the new gendarmerie that is starting to work in Mexico.
So outsiders are actually helping to contribute to this?
Of course, and we rely very much on the international cooperation, both bilaterally with countries like France, but also through multilateral mechanisms like the Office of the High Commissioner of the UN for Human Rights.
But this, it seems, I just have to underscore it, it seems like a tremendous problem. The mayor of Iguala and his wife, they were essentially, well, she was an alleged member of a drug cartel, right, of the Guerreros Unidos gang, and he was in the pay of them.
Apparently, yes.
And his police force as well, were in the pay of the drug cartels, allegedly.
That's why the whole local police in Iguala has been replaced by this new gendarmerie. And we know that in certain places there are weaknesses that need to be tackled. And if you see, for instance, the way in which President Peña Nieto has addressed the problems in Michoacán, you can make the case that when there's political will and a proper investment of resources and a good venture between the civil society and local authorities, you can make real improvements on the ground.
It would seem you'd also need some brave people with the will as well. I'm just curious, your own job title, the human rights dossier, so to speak. I mean, have you ever received threats in your own job in trying to carry out your are you under pressure? I couldn't do your job.
Thanks God, no. Thanks God, no. And I've been doing this job for the last 8 years. But of course, I'm just one among the many civil servants that work on these issues. The foreign policy is not the one that deals on the ground with issues. We do the international liaison with international mechanisms.
You're one in many, but you never get a Senora Robledo, we want you to back off this case. You better if you know what's good for you.
No, and I get a very good cooperation from all of my colleagues, both in the police, in the military, in the civil service. We all work together, and I think that we are doing things in the right direction. This is exactly what the European Parliament said in the resolution they adopted in Strasbourg 2 weeks ago. That is exactly what other mechanisms like the High Commissioner told me yesterday. I was with him in Geneva to explain to him where we are, and he has pledged to continue working with us.
Mexico's Attorney General, correct me if my pronunciation is wrong, Jesus Murillo, right?
Yes.
You know this incident. He said at a press conference the other day, he was being bombarded with questions about the missing students. And he basically said, I think, ya me canso. I'm tired. I've had enough. Is he not talking for a lot of politicians who are under pressure and they've had enough of this? Hope it will go away.
No, he's a great man who has been working tirelessly over the last 5 weeks. I've been in dozens of meetings with him, and I can testify to his commitment. He's in liaison with the families. Only yesterday, when he went back to Chilpancingo with the Minister of the Interior, he's working on the investigation. He has put all of his best men and women on this case. I think it is absolutely natural that after more than 2 hours of press conference, he just said that he needed perhaps a sort of break.
And he snapped there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Juan Manuel Gomez Robledo, Deputy Foreign Minister for Multilateral Affairs, Human Rights, thank you. We're going to be obviously following along with you the further investigation of this case, a case that has rocked Mexico and led to demands for really solutions, long-term solutions.
Thank you very much, and I commit for full transparency, openness, and accountability.
Your viewers have heard it here on France 24. Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.